Some stories never leave the web. They just wait. This is LurmoStories, where every forgotten thread, every deleted post is a mystery waiting to be solved. And tonight, we're about to dive into the stories you weren't supposed to find. I signed up because the email looked legitimate. Plain text, no logo, no links except a PDF with instructions. Address in the footer was a real office park outside Columbus. I checked Street View. Beige buildings, flagpoles, nothing strange. The PDF said participation would take under 2 hours and that punctuality mattered. The building didn't have a name, just a number stenciled near the door. Inside smelled like dust and lemon cleaner. Fluorescent lights, the kind that hum slightly but never flicker enough to complain about. A woman at a folding table checked my ID, then slid a laminated card toward me. It had a number on it. No name, no explanation. "Have a seat, someone will call you," she said, already looking past me. The waiting room was long and narrow, no windows. Plastic chairs lined up against the wall, all facing the same direction, like a bus terminal without a bus. About a dozen people were there. Nobody talked. Some looked at their phones, some just stared forward. I sat and held the card in my lap. A door at the far end opened every so often. A man would step out, read a number, and one person would stand up and follow him. They didn't come back. At first, it felt orderly, efficient. I told myself it was probably a study or an interview process broken into steps. But after a while, I noticed small things. When the door opened, the light inside wasn't brighter or darker than the hallway. It was the same, like the rooms shared the same ceiling. The man calling numbers never repeated himself. He didn't look at faces, only at the cards people held. Once, someone stood up without being called. A guy in a hoodie, maybe nervous or confused. The man looked at him and said, very calmly, "It's not your turn." The guy sat back down immediately. Time dragged. My phone had no signal, even though I should have had at least one bar. The wall clock ticked, but I couldn't tell if it was keeping real time. Eventually, the woman at the table was gone. I hadn't seen her leave. After a while, I realized the room was quieter than it should be. No coughing, no shifting chairs. The people who'd been there when I arrived were mostly gone now, replaced by others I didn't remember seeing come in. I checked my card again. My number hadn't changed. The door opened. The man scanned the room. "Not yet," he said, looking directly at me this time. That was the first moment I understood that waiting was part of it, and that it mattered how well you waited. I tried to keep track of how many people went in before me, but it stopped making sense. New faces appeared without any sound of the door opening behind us. One moment a chair was empty, the next it was occupied by someone staring straight ahead like they'd always been there. Nobody acknowledged it. The man kept calling numbers. His voice never changed. Same volume, same rhythm. Sometimes 2 numbers in quick succession, sometimes long gaps where nothing happened at all. During one of those gaps, a woman a few seats down leaned toward me and whispered, "Do you know what this is?" I shook my head. She nodded, like that confirmed something. "They told me it was training," she said, "but I already did the training. This is something else." Before I could ask what she meant, the door opened again. "Number 31!" She stood up immediately. As she passed me, she left her card on the chair. I glanced at it. 31, crossed out with a thick black line, like someone had pressed too hard. I looked at my own card. The number was the same, but the edges felt softer now, like it had been handled too much. A different man came out next time. Older, heavier, breathing through his mouth. He didn't call a number right away. He just stood there, scanning the room, his eyes stopping on people for a second too long. "Some of you are early," he said. "Some of you are late. Don't try to fix that." Someone asked what would happen if they left. The man smiled, but it didn't change his eyes. "You already agreed to stay." A few chairs down, a guy started crying quietly. No one reacted. The crying stopped on its own. The lights dimmed slightly. Not enough to notice at first, but enough that the corners of the room felt farther away. The clock on the wall had stopped ticking. The second hand was stuck between numbers. When my card finally changed, it wasn't called out. The number was scratched into something new, deeper than before. My turn was close. I could feel it in the way the room seemed to lean forward, like it was listening. The door opened again. This time, the man didn't read a number. He just said my name. And everyone else looked at me like they'd been waiting for that part. I didn't remember giving my name. I stood up anyway. The chairs didn't creak when I moved, which felt wrong, like sound had rules here. The man stepped aside and held the door open. Up close, he smelled faintly metallic, like old coins. The room beyond was smaller than I expected. Same lights, same walls, but no chairs. Just tape on the floor marking a rectangle. Another person stood inside it, facing the wall. They were shaking slightly. "Wait here," the man said to me, pointing just outside the tape. "Don't speak unless asked." The person in the rectangle turned their head a little, enough that I could see one eye. It was red and unfocused. Their lips moved, but no sound came out. I realized they were counting under their breath, mouthing numbers over and over. A buzzer sounded, not loud, just firm. The person stepped forward, crossed the tape, and walked through a second door I hadn't noticed before. It closed behind them. I didn't hear anything after that. No footsteps, no voices. The man picked up a clipboard from the wall and made a mark. Then he looked at me. "Your turn," he said. I stepped into the rectangle. The tape stuck slightly to my shoe. Up close, I saw that the floor inside the lines was more worn than the rest, scuffed down to a dull gray. "What happens now?" I asked. He didn't answer. He just started the timer. Standing there, I understood what the waiting had been for. It wasn't about order. It was about seeing who could sit still long enough, who could follow instructions without needing reassurance, who wouldn't make a problem of the empty spaces where people used to be. Minutes passed, or seconds. My legs started to ache. I kept my eyes on the wall like the others had. There were faint marks there too, scratches at eye level, layered over each other. The second door opened. Someone inside said, "Next." The man tapped my shoulder once. Not hard, almost polite. As I stepped forward, I looked back toward the waiting room. Through the crack in the door, I saw new people sitting in the chairs, holding laminated cards, calm and patient. The door closed behind me before I could see who was next. I took a 6-month contract doing records cleanup for a regional administrative office in the Midwest. Nothing secret, just scanning, renaming, archiving. The kind of work nobody wants to do, but everyone pretends is important. Beige building, low ceilings, fluorescent lights that buzzed even when they were off. Everyone polite. Too polite. First week was onboarding videos and forms. The forms were the strange part. Not the usual HR stuff. There were addendums about procedural discretion and verbal compliance during audits. I asked the supervisor, a woman named Karen who never wrote anything down, what that meant. She smiled without blinking and said, "It won't apply to you unless it needs to." I worked in a windowless room with 3 other contractors. We didn't talk much. Phones had to stay in lockers. No earbuds, no outside storage devices. Every file had a numerical tag that didn't match the database index. When I asked IT about it, they said the numbers were for a different system I didn't have access to. Fair enough. Around week 3, I noticed some folders were already scanned but still flagged as incomplete. Inside were forms with signatures scratched out, names replaced with initials, dates overwritten 3 or 4 times. Always the same clerk approval stamp. Always missing the final page. I mentioned it to Karen during a check-in. She asked me to lower my voice even though we were alone. Then she thanked me for being attentive and told me to keep processing them as instructed. "The gaps are intentional," she said. "You're not responsible for what isn't there." After that, the files changed. New batches appeared on my desk without being logged. The timestamp said they were created years ago, but the paper was clean, warm sometimes. One folder had my employee ID written in pencil on the inside flap. I erased it. The next morning, it was back, darker. At the end of week 5, Karen stopped by my desk with a man I hadn't seen before. No badge. He knew my name. He shook my hand and said, "We appreciate your cooperation." I hadn't agreed to anything. He held my gaze like he was waiting for me to correct him. That night, my access badge stopped working on the exit door. Security said it was a system delay. While they reset it, the man stood nearby, nodding at me as if I'd done well. When the light turned green, he said it again, slower this time. "Thank you for cooperating." I didn't respond. He didn't seem to mind. Week 6 started with my desk moved. Same room, different corner, closer to the filing cabinets nobody used. My nameplate was gone. In its place was a white card that just said temp in block letters. I asked Karen if this was a mistake. She said seating was dynamic and asked if I was feeling resistant to change. I said no. She thanked me. The new batches were heavier, literally, boxes instead of folders. Inside were binders labeled with city names, then street names, then apartment numbers. Each binder contained correspondence logs, complaint forms, inspection summaries, normal bureaucratic stuff, except the outcomes were always blank. No resolutions, no follow-ups, just notes in the margins, handwritten. All different handwriting, all saying the same thing in different ways. Spoke with subject, subject understood. No further clarification necessary. Some of the addresses were places I recognized. I delivered food to one of them years ago. Another was an office park I used to pass on my commute. I searched the internal system for one address. No record. I searched the public database during lunch. The building existed, but the unit number didn't. The man without the badge started appearing more often, always standing just close enough to read my screen, never touching anything. If I made a mistake, he didn't correct me. He'd just say, "Try again," like a suggestion. When I got it right, he'd nod once. One afternoon, I found a binder with my last name on the spine. Inside were copies of my intake forms, my background check, notes from meetings I didn't remember attending. There was a summary page at the front. It said I was responsive and non-confrontational. Under recommendations, it said, "Continued use acceptable." I closed it and put it back in the box. My hands were shaking, but nobody commented. Nobody ever commented. That evening, as I was leaving, Karen stopped me at the door. She said there had been positive feedback. She said the office valued my discretion. She asked if I had any concerns I wanted documented. I said no. She smiled wider than usual and said, "Good, that makes things simpler." My badge worked fine that night. At home, I checked my email. There was a message from HR, timestamped 5 years earlier, welcoming me to the team and thanking me for my cooperation. The sender address didn't exist anymore. I didn't reply. I didn't delete it either. Week 7 was my last, according to the contract. Nobody mentioned it. No reminders, no exit checklist. The work kept coming. Smaller batches now, single folders, each one thinner than the last. The last folder was waiting on my desk when I arrived Monday. No label, no barcode. Just a manila folder turned upside down, like it had been placed deliberately wrong. Inside was one document. It was a cooperation acknowledgement form. No letterhead, no agency name. Just a paragraph stating that my participation had been noted, that no further action was required from me, and that continued discretion would be assumed. At the bottom was a signature line already filled in. Not my handwriting, but my name. Correct spelling. The date was blank. The man without the badge was standing behind me. I hadn't heard him approach. He said I didn't need to sign it. He said it was already complete. He asked me to check for accuracy. I asked what would happen if it wasn't accurate. He looked genuinely confused. Then he said, "That wouldn't be consistent with your prior behavior." Karen appeared in the doorway. She said this was the last step. She said I'd been very helpful. She thanked me again. Both of them waited. I said the document looked fine. The man nodded and took the folder. He told me I was free to go. Karen said HR would be in touch if anything else was needed. Neither of them offered to escort me out. My desk was already empty. Locker too. Even the temp card was gone. The building felt larger without anyone watching. On my way out, I passed the security desk. The guard congratulated me. I asked him what for. He said, "For finishing." My badge didn't open the door this time. It wasn't red or green, just dead. The guard buzzed me out manually and said, "You won't need that anymore." At home, my contract portal showed the job as completed years ago, paid in full, reviewed positively. Under reason for departure, it said, "Mutual understanding." Sometimes I still get emails thanking me for my cooperation. They don't ask for anything. They never include attachments. I don't respond. I think that's the point. Hi, Anons. I got hired mid-quarter at a mid-sized company in the Midwest. Nothing sketchy on paper. Insurance software. Open plan office, glass meeting rooms, motivational posters that looked 5 years out of date. People were polite in that careful HR-approved way, like they'd practiced it. First week was onboarding videos and shadowing. Second week, they invited me to the Monday team meeting. 10 of us in a narrow conference room. Fluorescent lights. A whiteboard that still had last quarter's goals half erased. Our manager, Carl, ran things by the book. Agenda on screen, updates, blockers. Then he smiled and said, "Before we wrap, quick alignment check." He looked straight at me. "Who's responsible for the late-stage validation on the Redwood account?" The room went quiet. Not awkward quiet, not thinking quiet, more like someone had muted the audio. People stopped moving. One guy had his pen halfway to the paper and just held it there. Someone else's laptop fan got loud, like it was the only thing still working. Carl didn't react, just waited. I assumed I missed context, maybe internal politics. I cleared my throat and said, "Sorry, I'm new. Redwood is..." Carl's smile twitched, just for a second. "That's okay," he said. "Someone here knows." Nobody spoke. I looked around, expecting eye contact, shrugs, anything. Instead, everyone was suddenly very interested in neutral objects. The table grain, the wall clock, a crack in the glass. After a few seconds, Carl nodded, typed something, and moved on like it never happened. Meeting ended, chairs scraped. People filed out fast. I caught up to a guy named Marcus at the coffee machine. Nice enough before, talked sports, kids, normal stuff. "Hey," I said, keeping it light, "what was that about Redwood?" He didn't answer right away, stirred his coffee even though there was nothing in it. "Don't ask that," he said quietly. "Ask what?" "That question." I laughed, thinking he was joking. He wasn't smiling. "Look," he said, lowering his voice. "You'll learn how things work here. Just don't put names to gaps." "Gaps in what?" He finally looked at me then. His eyes were tired, like he hadn't rested properly in a long time. "In coverage," he said. "In memory." Then he walked away, leaving his coffee untouched. That afternoon, I checked the internal docs. Redwood account existed, big client, lots of folders. But when I opened the validation history, there was a clean 6-week stretch with no entries, no signatures, no comments. Just blank rows, like someone carefully removed something and didn't want it noticed. I thought about asking IT, or Carl. Instead, at 4:58 p.m., I got a calendar invite for next Monday's meeting. Same room, same agenda. One line added at the bottom, highlighted in yellow. Redwood, confirm owner, do not skip. I didn't accept it right away. I watched people packing up around me, laughing, talking about dinner plans. Every single one of them avoided looking in my direction. All week, nobody mentioned Redwood, not in emails, not in Slack, not in passing. I tested it once, casually dropped the name in a chat thread about account priorities. The message went through. 2 people saw it. Neither replied. 5 minutes later, the thread was locked by a system bot with no explanation. By Friday, I noticed something else. Whenever I walked into a room, conversations would end a second too early. Not dramatic, just a pause, then a topic change. Weather, deadlines, anything but whatever had been there before. I started paying attention to the meeting room, room C12, glass walls, motion sensor lights. On Sunday evening, out of curiosity, I checked the building access app. It logs room usage. C12 showed as occupied every night from 7 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. No meetings scheduled, no names attached. Monday morning, the team filed in again. Same seats, same posture. Carl looked worse, dark under the eyes, voice a little tight. He pulled up the agenda, everything normal. He got to the last item and stopped. "Okay," he said, "we need to resolve this." Nobody moved. Carl didn't look at me this time. He stared at the table. "Redwood validation requires an owner," he said carefully. Compliance flagged the gap again. Silence. Then, from the far end of the table, someone cleared their throat. A woman named Denise. Quiet type. Always on time. Always precise. "It was already handled," she said. Carl nodded slowly. "By who?" Denise opened her mouth. Nothing came out. She tried again. Her lips moved. No sound. The air felt thick, like the room pressure had changed. The lights flickered once. Denise swallowed hard. Her face went pale. "I'm sorry," she said finally, voice shaking. "I don't know why I said that." Carl closed his laptop. "Okay," he said. "Let's stop." He stood up too fast, chair tipping backward. It hit the wall and nobody flinched. Meeting over. Again. This time, Carl pulled me aside before I could escape. "You didn't do anything wrong," he said. He kept his voice low, eyes darting to the hallway. "But you need to understand something." "Understand what?" He hesitated. "We don't assign responsibility retroactively," he said. "If a process completes without an owner, it stays that way." "That doesn't make sense." "I know," he said. "That's why it works." I waited for more. He didn't add anything. That night, I stayed late. Most people didn't. Office emptied fast after 6. At 7:05 p.m., the lights in C12 turned on by themselves. I stood in the hallway and watched through the glass. The room was empty. At 7:12, the whiteboard marker lifted off the tray and rolled across the table. It stopped in front of the chair Carl usually sat in. I left without signing out. The next morning, there was a company-wide email. Subject: Redwood account, finalized. Nobody text, just an attachment. A PDF audit report, fully signed. Owner field filled in. With my name. I didn't open the PDF at first. I stared at my name in the preview pane until the letters stopped looking real. Same spelling, same middle initial HR insisted on using. Digital signature timestamped at 7:18 p.m. I was not in the building at 7:18 p.m. By the time I checked Slack, my access was different. New channels, new folders, a quiet congratulations message from Carl sent at 6:02 a.m. Thanks for stepping up. This closes the loop. People treated me differently that day. Not hostile, relieved. Like a noise they'd learned to live with had finally shut off. Marcus stopped by my desk, smiled. First real smile I'd seen from him. Feels better, right? He said. I didn't do anything, I told him. He nodded. That's usually how it works. I went to HR. They pulled my file without surprise. Showed me a training completion I never attended, a meeting recap I wasn't in. All clean, all compliant. You're the owner, the HR rep said gently. If there's confusion, it'll create another gap. Another gap in what? She paused, choosing words. In traceability, she said, and we can't afford that again. I asked what happened to the previous owner. She scrolled, stopped. There wasn't one, she said. Not officially. That night, I got another calendar alert. Room C12, 7 p.m., mandatory. I didn't go. At 7:34 p.m., my phone buzzed with a system notification. Action completed successfully. The next morning, the Redwood folders were gone. Not archived, not deleted. Just absent, like they'd never existed. No gaps left to point at. Carl looked rested. Denise took a vacation. The building access logs no longer showed after-hours use. My role stayed the same, but something settled into place around me, like a weight redistributed. Weeks later, during another Monday meeting, Carl glanced at the agenda and hesitated. Quick check, he said, eyes scanning the room. Who owns... He stopped himself, shook his head. Never mind, he said. All set. Nobody reacted. I didn't either, because I understood now. The question wasn't dangerous because of the answer. It was dangerous because it needed one. And next time a name had to go somewhere empty, the system already knew where to put it. The posts are over, the screen is still glowing, and your room feels a bit different now. You've been listening to LurmoStories. Remember that the next time you open a late-night thread you weren't supposed to find.